Okay, and we're live. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Parenting Teens with Dr. Cam. I'm your host, Dr. Cam, and today I'm talking with Juan de Dios Garcia. Juan de Dios is a ballroom dance champion, entrepreneur, and a couples coach. In order to show up as the parents our children need us to be, we must make sure our relationship as a couple is healthy and that we're parenting as a team. Only when we're on the same page, focusing on the same values and priorities, can we provide consistent, clear guidance to our teens. And Juan de Dios is going to provide some tips on how to do that. Welcome, Juan de Dios. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you very much this fine morning. How about you?
I'm doing great and love to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Let's dig in right away and tell us, how did you get started as a couples coach?
Yeah, it's not your ordinary path. So the way I got into it is the story of how I got into ballroom dancing. I was a dork in high school. I really didn't know how to talk to girls, really, and that's all I wanted. And so what I did was I figured out, how do I talk to women? That was all I wanted to do. And as a dork in high school who had no self-confidence, who had the hardest time fitting in and being part of the crowd, I always make this joke about if they sold self-confidence at the liquor store down the street, I totally would have bought it. But I decided right then and there, the path to figuring this all out was take a ballroom dance class. And so I joined ballroom dancing. I figured if I can learn to dance with a girl, I can certainly speak to her. And it worked for me. A year later, I found myself in a salsa club dancing with the girl of my dreams. And it was kind of like one of those surreal moments where, like, the lights just kind of go out, everybody gets out of the room, and it's just you and her. And
Wow.
and we just had an amazing moment. I remember the way she looked at me, the way her hair smelled, how her hand all of a sudden felt differently in that moment. And it was that was like right then and there, I knew that I was going to marry her. And over the next 6 years, that's when we started developing this romantic relationship. We started developing a dance partnership together. We started developing, and we're already working together. And that's all we did, literally 24/7 with each other. And so as we navigated through this world of newness and figuring out how we work together, and then how we work as this partnership in the ballroom dance world, the ballroom dancing taught us a lot about our relationship. And in ballroom dancing, if you're familiar with it, then you might know that there's a competition side where everybody's judging. And so everybody in the room is a judge. You're judged on your looks, you're judged on your personality, you're judged on how you relate with one another, and you're dancing on top of that. And so everybody had an opinion about us because they really hadn't seen anything like us before. So I've got my curly hair, I'm darker complected. My wife is the same. I'm a whole foot taller than she is, as you can relate, just because I stood next to you already.
Yes.
So she's smaller than you are.
I think your comment was, "You're so much shorter in person than I thought you'd
I
be."
did. I know. You were 10 feet when I saw you online. So cool. And you are, by the way. You're beautiful. But yeah, so they really hadn't seen us dance before. And so their opinion really was, you shouldn't. So that we kept hearing a lot of times, you shouldn't dance together. You're not the right height for one another. You guys shouldn't dance like that. You should find a very similar look, the way everybody looks like. You want to blend in with the entire crowd. And we even had one person tell us, you need to dye your hair blonde so that you can look like all the other blonde people that were on the floor. So there was a necessary, I guess, need on their end to say, hey, fit in. And what it did was it turned the ballroom dancing, the fun ballroom dancing side, and it turned it immediately into work. And you love parenting teens, you love working with teens. There's a point in time when, if somebody came up to you and does just like made you feel like this is now work. It's no longer fun for you. That's what happened to us. And so we went into a deep dive, and that deep dive really asked the question, what's important for us, and what do we want? What do we want? And we studied everything. We studied NLP. We studied training on just not just our brain, but our souls and our energy and our happiness, and all of that boiled into, at the end of years later, a lot of money later spent on personal coaching, as we all do in the personal development field, and it came to one final question, which was, what's important to us. And what came out was, be yourself, be you, and be who you are. And it was in that moment that we stopped and kind of forgot and really didn't care about what the world thought about us, what other people thought about us. And we started to care about what her and I really felt and thought about each other and ourselves. And that's when we started winning dance championships. That's when our success skyrocketed. We now own 2 successful ballroom dance studios today, to the point where we're here. But throughout that whole process, I did not realize this. But ever since the beginning, ballroom dancing parallels relationships from it's insane how much they paralleled each other. And I didn't know it at the time, but when couples would come in, I thought they were there to learn to dance, which they are. But I didn't know that I was going to be put in a position to counsel them and to coach them, because a lot of our issues come about, when we're doing something with our significant other and with anybody who we care for in a relationship, those feelings come out more. And so all of a sudden, a misstep or a missed signal for a turn turned into, that we were doing the rumba wrong or the foxtrot wrong, into, that's the reason why you never take out the trash at home, or, and that's why you never listen to me. What's new? So it would, so we found quickly how to navigate this. And it turned us into a couples coach, over that 25-year process that we were in the ballroom dance career. And here we are now.
That's amazing.
And actually following this part that's calling to us that says, you need to talk about this more, especially now.
Oh my gosh, people need this so badly. And there were so many parallels as you were talking that I just have to kind of call out to. So this whole thing, first, when people are telling you how you should be when you are a dancer, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's teen's life right there, nonstop, right? And even us parents are telling them how they should be, right? And this is the box you need to fit in, and kind of you pushing that. So I just had to call that out, because that's such a big piece of that. And then also being able to just step back and go, what's important to us? What is important? Let's disregard what everyone else is saying should be important to us, what everyone else is judging us on, because who are they? They're like these faceless people, right? What's important to us as a couple, and what's important to us for our kids? That's where we need to go, right? And I talk to couples that want the best for their kids, but they are struggling to be on the same page. They parent from very different places. Their priorities are different. So what can you say? Let's start off with these 2 people that are stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah.
Where do you begin?
Okay, so I'll parallel this to the dance, just because I'm a ballroom dancer.
Yes.
But so let's say you and I are decided we're going to go dancing, and
which we need to do sometime, by the way.
I know. Yes, we must. I've got to whisk you around the dance floor. I just know I do. But yeah. So let's say we were out dancing, and I went up to you and I said, "Hey, Dr. Cam, let's go dance." One of 2 things is probably going to happen. You're going to be really excited, and you're going to know what you're doing or not, or B, you're going to be really nervous and scared and you're going to know what you're doing or not. And so the biggest key there is I have to know how to dance. So I have to know my steps. I have to know what I'm doing. I have to know what dance I want to do. I have to know how I'm going to lead you as a partnership. If I was just dancing with myself, I could do whatever I wanted. I can just get up and just move my arms and call that a dance. I mean, Elaine did that in Seinfeld, right? So, but if I was dancing with another partner, I must first know what I'm doing. And that's the very first lesson that we teach into every single one of our couples and to in the programs that we have is the pillar number one of a relationship is the relationship I have with myself. So what does that relationship look like? And do I take care of myself? Do I do I listen to myself? Do I speak to myself? How do I speak to myself? And oftentimes we kind of navigate our world by jumping into the other person and everybody else and think of all these external circumstances when we really need to kind of bring back and focus on ourselves. It's I'll say this, it's my wife's birthday today. And
really, happy birthday to
oh my
her.
God, I know, I'm so excited. But the thing that she did at midnight last night was she did a self-fulfilling ritual for her where she took a bath. She, did a little meditation for herself. She did this like, she was reading this book and started journaling. And it was amazing to see what she was feeding. And I was on the outside. I was like, it was, and I don't want to say I wasn't allowed in, but I respected that space and just said, okay, you got to do your own thing because that's what you need for you. So how do we fill ourselves and how do we do those things? If I'm not filled, I can't give you something that I don't have. And that's what we tell everybody. So that's the first thing that I would say to the couple coming in would be, okay, what's your relationship like with you? Now that's a heavy question right off the bat, but it would probably be something more along the lines of what are some fun things that you like to do on your own? What are some things that you like to do by yourself? Where can you take a walk by yourself? Can you read a book on your own uninterrupted? Can you put your phone away and just kind of zone it? Even if it's sit in the car. I mean, we see parents do that all the time in every commercial. It's like, get away from the kids. It's because they just never have that time. If they did, they'd be more filled within themselves. But that's the first thing we teach everybody is we say, let's start with you. And then once we get you right, then we can talk about the next step.
It's so important in general just to have that relationship with yourself and to take care of yourself because you can't show up for anybody else if you're not full and filled yourself, right? So important. I love that. So then what's the next step?
Okay, so the next step is you. So we call it the you pillar, and the you pillar is my partner. So now I know what to do. I figured out. I took dance lessons. I learned how to dance. I know what dance I'm doing. I know how to lead now. And then I say, okay, now I'm ready to dance with Dr. Cam. And I go up and I ask you to dance. And as I'm holding you in my arms, I typically would start dancing and saying, you're not doing this right. Because I know something now, right? So because I know something, I'm going to say, Dr. Cam, you're not stepping here. You're not doing this. Let me teach you how to do it. Let me show you what dance I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, everything turns from all this learning that I did, this training that I did, that I did for myself, on myself. I'm like, okay, now I feel good. And then immediately I turn it around and say, you don't know.
Yeah.
And I'll start doing this. And that becomes external in the sense of, well, now you're the issue and I'm not the issue because I've learned it already. And in the relationship, that's probably one of the hardest points because it takes any blame and responsibility away from the individual and it puts it completely on the other person. Why? And then we'll use these words to as if to say that you're in charge of it. So as if the example being, what you're in charge of making me happy. You're the reason why I don't love. You're the reason why this isn't working. You're the reason why the kitchen isn't clean, you're the reason why this and that. And even just hearing that, and to the parents hearing that, you can immediately see where the issue lies, right? Because now I'm putting total blame on the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So in this pillar, the focus here is not about the answer I say about you are the reason why, but it's more begging the question about, um, how can I
Mm.
for you? What can I do so that you feel safe? What can I do so that you feel loved? And it's because I want something in return, right? I want to feel loved. So then what can I do to make and help you feel loved? Because you feeling loved makes me feel loved.
Mm.
What can I do to listen to you and communicate with you? Because then if I communicate with you, you'll communicate with me. So what can I do? How can I? And I start to ask that question, and that question opens the door more for more communication, more connection, more love, more just a better overall relationship. And it's because of the fact that I'm thinking, how can I for you? So that's the second one we talk about. We talk about the relationship we have with you focuses first on the question I have for myself, so that I can be a better leader, a better partner, a better husband, a better whatever for you.
That is extremely powerful. And I love the way you're saying it, where instead of pointing the finger, which we can't change anybody else, like that is basically just saying we're victims and we're accepting the fact that this sucks and I'm just going to be mad at you and that's the life I'm choosing. And the choice that we have is to say, what is in my power? What can I do? And I so love the fact that you're like, how can I help you? Because that empowers us to do something, which when we're victims, we don't feel like we have a choice. We can't do anything, but now we have a choice. And by doing that, we're probably fulfilling something that they're pointing their fingers at us saying, you're not doing this. Well, all of a sudden we're doing it. And they're like, oh my gosh, like that just kind of opens that door for that. So that is really powerful.
Yeah.
All right.
I should also throw in one little thing too, in the sense that, a lot of times when we're even having that conversation or doing that, we just think that it's there's only one answer, and the answer is we have to be on the same page. See, if I were to have a disagreement with you, it's okay, because you're an individual and I'm an individual. And so you have your own thoughts and I have my own thoughts, and that's totally fine. It's okay for us to disagree. It's okay. It's okay for us to not always be on the same page. It's not okay that I disrespect that point of view. It's not okay that I berate you or feel like, this is the worst thing ever. We think that it's got to be, I guess, all lovey-dovey and 100% of the time, and it's not. We're going to have our disagreements. In fact, most relationships, the majority of relationships are about, two completely different people on opposite ends of the spectrum trying to figure out a way to connect together. And that's what attracts us so much to each other. So we honor that part, and we're excited about that part. But at the same time, we have to say, okay, I just know that that's totally fine. And I'm okay with that. Yeah.
One thing I found too that I think it's really interesting is I'll talk to couples, and I mean, I'm not a couple therapist by any means, but when I'm talking to two parents that are trying to get on the same, I mean, when there's parenting, it's pretty important to start getting on the same page. They'll be complete opposite sides of the spectrum. Yeah. And what's interesting is when you start drilling down to their priorities, their values, they end up being a lot more aligned than they thought they were. They just express it differently and it sounds very different. But when you start working, you're like, you guys are not as opposite as you thought you were. And I think that's always interesting too, when you have that communication and you start kind of sharing that. You're like, oh wait, okay, that's actually the same.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I like to play a little game with my wife where I ask her the most random questions, just to see how she likes a certain thing. And, It could, from something as small as like how to eat an Oreo cookie to where do you want to go on your next trip. And I'll find that, her answers often are very similar to the answers that I have. So yeah, I totally understand that.
That's awesome. Okay, so next step.
Okay. All right. So the third and final step that we focus on is the external. And the external is the third. We call it us. So there's, if we were in a bubble, there's the me bubble, which is all about me and the relationship I have with myself. There's the you bubble and the relationship I have with you and everything that I think about you, or the questions I really should be asking so that you can and I can have a great relationship. And then what happened is those two bubbles they merge a little bit, because we're still individuals in the end. They merge a little bit, and that little center that was merged is who you and I are now, right? So now I've asked the question. I've figured out how to lead you better. I figured out exactly what you wanted out of the dance partnership, and so now I'm dancing with you, and I'm moving myself with you on the dance floor. But still, I've got these things that are like other dancers on the floor. I've got to figure out what the music sounds like. I got to figure out, where am I navigating us in this dance, and how does that work? Well, that third relationship of you and I and us is what we really start to become a team, because that's when we start to get to the point where we figure out and kind of like have that whole finish each other sentences sort of things. It's because we're on the same page now. It's because we're focused completely on this world, that the external world no longer dictates how you and I navigate. And that's probably one of the biggest things, because oftentimes as couples we'll still have our own individual idea of like, this is what it should be like. And so what will happen is an external thing will come in, and it could be like, your own set of parents, your in-laws' parents. It could be the teacher at school. It could be the friends in the neighborhood. It could be that, the social media that says this is how a couple like you should live in the world. Or this is how a couple like you should parent your teen, or this is how a couple like you should do X, Y, and Z, and whatever that is. And when we in our relationship, and I'm talking about mine and my wife's, in our relationship, when we started focusing more on, hey, you and I, let's do this together. Let's get on the same page. Let's focus on how you and I are going to answer the questions that are constantly going to come at us. What does that sound like? What does that look like? What's important to us? What are the values that you and I hold, just like you were saying? And what's that integrity? And then we use that as a boundary to say, this is how we navigate in the world. And then and every little thing that happens or comes up gets held up to the light of this boundary that we've created, and the set of I guess I'll say rules that we've created for our relationship. And if it holds true, then we'll do it. And if it doesn't, we won't. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and oftentimes we don't have kids, but I see this in every single client of mine that has kids. And the ones that come in will always say the same thing. Now that the kids are gone, we can live our life, so to speak. And I can only imagine that, that you're in a relationship with somebody and you signed this agreement, and the agreement said, hey, we're going to have these 2 amazing years with each other. It's going to be you and I, and we're going to travel the world, and we're going to do whatever we want. But then I'm going to sign this line that says we're going to forget about each other for a good 20, 30 years, because we're going to have kids. So let's forget about each other for 30 years. And then on year 31 of the relationship, or 33 in the relationship, hey, let's come back and let's really focus on us so we can spend the last, whatever years we have left together. Nobody signs up for that. Nobody signs up for that because, yes, the kid's important. I'm a child. Yes, I am important, but I'm not as important as another relationship, right? I'm just as important as another relationship, but not more important than another relationship. And so the relationship that we have as a couple is paramount. So when we talk about um, this bubble doesn't include anybody else. This bubble doesn't include your children. This bubble doesn't include any
Mm.
immediate family or friends. This bubble is you and somebody else, and that's the relationship right there, right? And so they only fit in a bubble. You can extend the bubble a different bubble and call it the
Mm.
family bubble. Put all the kids there, put the family dog and the cats there, perfectly fine. That's the family bubble. But when it comes to you and I,
Mm.
this is important, and this is the time that we must spend together, and this is how we work. And when the couples that come in, we teach them that, and especially in the dancing part, and they get to have a lot of fun. And it's amazing because they're the ones now turning around to their 30-year-old kids and so on that are coming back saying, hey, we want to see you for the weekend. They're like, we can't because we're going to go out dancing with our friends.
Nice.
And it's like, oh, okay, wow, my parents have a life now. And they've learned to set those boundaries so that they can like have the amazing life that the two of them always wanted, and be able to still have that amazing life with their children. So that's us.
That is so critical too, because the message we're sending our kids when we kind of go our separate ways, and I hear this too. A lot of parents feel like they're parenting on their own, even though they're married.
Yeah.
Or they're parenting at conflict with one another. So they're actually like opposing one another, which is completely confusing to the kids, right? Rather than modeling this healthy relationship as a team working together, which makes you far more powerful as a parent when you're doing it together as a team, and you're showing up for your kids better when you're together as a team. And so how important is that you do spend time, you're focusing on yourself, you're focusing on your spouse and you guys as a couple. And I do know couples that still they prioritize date night away from the kids. They prioritize making sure that their relationship is healthy, and it is critical because you need that support of one another too. And then 30 years down the road, you still know each other, rather than going, who the heck are you? Like, you've been off for longer than you were before you met. So you're
Yeah.
probably not even remotely the same person. You're like, but being strong and having that, I think that is just so incredibly powerful. But modeling that for our kids. What does a
Yeah.
healthy relationship look for our kids so
Yeah.
they know
And
how to have that?
yeah, certainly. And I think, and especially for teens, you're what you're trying to do is, like, I think every parent wants the best for their kids, right? And probably even better than they had it. And
Absolutely.
and so and they're navigating from a place of like, how do I get you there, sort of thing. But the feeling I have is the way you navigate it is by being the demonstration of it, right? How can I demonstrate to you what love looks like, right? Instead of like, I love you, it's more like, let me show you what love looks like. Let me show you what love looks like
Mm-hmm.
with a relationship with another partner and another person. And let me show you, like, one of the things that my dad did was he showed me so much how to treat his wife,
Mm-hmm.
because he treated her like, like she didn't really clean as much in the house. Like, he did everything, he did all this stuff because he wanted to present for her, because he cared for her so much, and he wanted to pamper her, to where that's how I treat my other relationships. I treat my other relationships with, like, let me pamper you,
Mm-hmm.
let me give to you, let me be of service to you, because I had that growing up my whole life, right? And we pick those things up as kids, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're always seeing, we're always watching, and that would be kind of like the answer to that. But to kind of go to your other point too, that's the number one fear of most couples, empty nesters specifically, is I'm afraid of who you are, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid of who I am with you. And having that coach or something else that says, how do we work this together, that's very scary. But you're right, if you can already have that answer before then, there's no better time to start than now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is kind of people listening to this are listening on their own, and they're probably going, I would love that relationship with my spouse.
Mhm.
I have no idea how to even initiate reconnecting with them.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for them on like what can they do now to just start getting reconnected?
Yeah, I would say start on your own because the journey starts with one.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a parallel to this too in my own personal life. But there was a time where my wife was going through a transition and just kind of like finding herself, and she started like going like full deep into self development.
Hmm.
And this was before I was even into self development, before I really understood what it meant. And so all I saw as a husband on the outside was I just watched the difference it made in her, and the growth that she was making. And I was excited. I was excited because she would come and she would tell me, and she would just be, oh, I learned this new thing today. I learned about this new mentality thing. I went to this seminar, and guess what I learned? Look at the book. And she would just be happy about it. And there was a point in time where I could see her evolution. And there was like this moment flashed before my eyes, which was, you're gonna get a divorce.
Mm.
You're gonna get a divorce because she's gonna evolve and you're not.
Mm.
And it scared the crap out of me, literally. So I'm like, I need to jump on board with evolving myself, because if I don't evolve, I'm going to get left behind, because it's natural.
Mm.
It's the natural order. And somebody evolves, they move on, they go to their next things, they grow their wings, they're the butterfly, I'm still a caterpillar. So what, and I'm left on the branch, bye, see you later, right? You get to see the world. So I make a choice in that point in time. If this relationship is loving, caring, if this is something that I really want, then I'll put myself in a cocoon and make the transformation and become a butterfly with you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did. But it wouldn't have happened if she waited. It wouldn't, and she would have been crushed, because
Yeah.
her soul would have said, I'm a butterfly, but I'm stuck here being a caterpillar this whole entire time, because I've got another caterpillar who doesn't want to be a butterfly. And the idea behind that, I mean, when you hear it that way, it's a little soul crushing sometimes, but in essence, that's kind of like what happens. So the answer is, how do I do it? I start. I start the process myself.
Mm.
I go through the 3 pillars and I just ask myself, okay, what's something that I can do for me today? What's one thing that I can do where I can go and I can schedule time and I can go on my own, and I can do, whether it's I go shopping by myself, whether it's I go for a walk in nature by myself, with no shoes, by the way, it's the best thing. Put your feet on the ground. Or I'm going to read a book on my own. I've got time to go take a day trip somewhere, whatever it is. What makes you happy? Start doing those things, and the little things turn into you being happy.
Mm.
You being happy means now all of a sudden you're happier in the relationship. And and as a person on the outside, I can't help but see what's different with you. Now that's new. What did you do today? I went for a walk. By yourself? By myself? You did? Yeah. Hey, we should go for a walk together. I'll figure it out later. And it's okay. But I'm going to do it because I'm important, and I know that that part of the relationship is important. And I start to notice those things. So because you did one thing, I inch closer to that.
Mm.
And then you start doing other things. Like you go to the you part of the relationship and you'll ask one simple thing. And you'll say something like, how can I make this better for you? Right. And then specifically in my relationship to my significant other, what's one thing that I can do that would make you happy? Right. My wife she loves to make me lunch when I go to work. And I feel so like proud of myself, because I literally have like a lunch bag, right? I got this lunch bag. I'm going to work, and it's filled with all these healthy foods, and it's great. But that's a little love thing that she does for me, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that so much more. And then in fact, in return, I want to do something else for her. I can't
Yeah.
help it just because it's the law of reciprocity. Um, but that's the next thing. And then the last part would be something as simple as like okay, let's do something together. What do I like to do together? Maybe, I read the love language book, and I read in the love language book that I'm physical touch. Okay, maybe I'm going to sit next to my partner because I need that feel from them, and just be next to them more for 10, 15 minutes or 30 minutes that we're going to be sitting on the couch while the kids are, doing homework or whatever. So, there are all the little things that you can do to start. I don't need a partner to start this. In fact, the majority of the people that come into our dance studio, the majority of people that go into our programs, um, start on their own, and they start on their own because it's important to them, and then eventually they get the support from the other, and then that's even more exciting because now they have a partner in crime, so to speak, that they get to do it with. But that would be the answer. Just start on your own, and the first one you'd start with is start with you.
That is so critical because a lot of people, I think we're like, well, they're not into it, so now I can't do anything. It's their fault. We can't do anything. And you're saying you just go. Don't have expectations on your spouse, though, because if you're expecting them to follow or pay attention or do it, you're going to set yourself up for disappointment, right?
Yeah.
Or for them to
Yeah.
disappoint you. And I say this about teens too. It's like you go into it with what you need without any expectations back, because then you're just, again, setting them up to fail and setting you up for to be disappointed. But by doing this, you're growing yourself. So either you're going to grow
Yeah.
and they're going to go, oh wow, I want to catch up, and you're inviting them to along the way without expectation, but you're inviting, like, I'm going to go for a walk if you want, I'm reading this great book if you want to hear about it. Like, you're constantly inviting them, and eventually they're either going to join you, or I guess you're going to get to this point where you're like, okay, I'm flying, and either I continue to fly this way, or, but you're not letting that person hold you back, and you're not letting that person dictate what you're able to do.
Yeah,
You're
and
just,
it's not about, and in addition to that, it's not about the end result, because a person could listen to this and say to themselves, oh, but then if I start that process, I'm going to grow, and we're going to get divorced. Oh, it's all over now, right? And they
yeah,
go to
yeah,
the end,
yeah, yeah.
and it's like, well, it's not about that. It's about when you get to that point in time, you're going to have these conversations with people. But I do have to say that, a couple things would be like, if we were in a relationship and I said, hey, I'm going to go for a walk, and you got upset. No, you don't go for a walk. You got to stay here. You got to take care of the kids. You got to do, you've got all this stuff that you have to do because you're in charge of it. If I took everything away from you and said, well, I've already handled it all, I've planned it all out, I've got enough time, I've got this, and you're still not letting me go, then I could say that it's okay. You don't have to agree with the fact that I want to go for a walk. I'm going to go anyways. But agree to disagree. Okay, I'll see you later, and go for your walk for 5 minutes or whatever like that. If that to me, I think is important because, yeah, you're going to fight me on it because of the limitation that you might have, but at the same time, I still got to do. In the end, I still got to do something that's good for me, right?
Yeah.
And if that leads to you being upset, or even going so far as to like assault me verbally or something like that, well, then I'm getting my answer sooner than rather than later. But the most important part is I need to start the process.
Yeah.
Let's start the process. Let's get the ball rolling. And as we go through this, what you're really hearing is just fear on the other end, right? I fight because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that, my wife is gonna know or learn or do something more because of me, because she's doing what she's doing, and I'm going to be left behind, and that makes me scared.
Mm-hmm.
Great, let's have that conversation. Imagine having that conversation with your partner, to be
Yeah.
able to say that I'm nervous and I'm afraid because you're going to be this great, amazing person and I'm not. Okay, good. Well, let's figure this out.
Let's be amazing together.
Let's be
Hey, even
amazing
better.
together. Yeah. So it'll bring up a lot more in the relationship, and you're right. It's going to be uncomfortable, but that's the whole point, to you're uncomfortable already. You're uncomfortable parenting your teen. You're uncomfortable being in a relationship. You're uncomfortable, being where you're at and having a relationship that you wish was stronger. And if that's the case, then then it's got to start somewhere.
It
So
does.
yeah,
And again, because I'm all about parenting, but
yeah,
I think this is just as important from a parent perspective too, that we have our own unique individual identity as a human being, right?
yeah,
That's separate from our spouse and separate from our kids, because what happens a lot of times, we get sucked in to that role, and suddenly that role as a spouse or as a parent defines us. It becomes who we are. And when that's taken away or is not working, we feel like, oh my gosh, I'm a failure because I'm not doing this one or two things I'm supposed to be doing, rather than I'm struggling a little bit in this area. I'm this person, this whole person. This is a piece of me that I am prioritized, but it's not all of me. And when my teen wants to do their own thing, I'm okay because I can stand on my own 2 feet. I don't need
yeah,
my teen constantly, validating me. I don't need my spouse to constantly be validating me, because I validate myself. And
yeah,
we're representing that to our teen, where you become your biggest cheerleader and validate yourself. And I think that is just extraordinarily powerful for any of us. Okay,
yeah.
so Juan de Dios, you are
Yes,
doing a couples coaching program. So
I
tell us
am.
about that.
Yeah, so we're two things that we're actually going to be launching within the next month is one is we're doing a couples love challenge. It's a free challenge for anybody who just wants to start the process and just start focusing on the things in the relationships that are important to us, starting with one, right? So
Mhm.
it's meant for the individual that comes in, meaning the sense that the one person from the relationship that comes in and how do I do this so that I can be better for my partner, and as well as for couples as well. And so what we're doing is we're taking 6 days and we're just focusing and putting attention on the relationship. What are those tips that we're going to do over every single day? We're going to learn one specific new thing where we just kind of go deep into this is something that you can immediately apply right now and notice a difference. So that's called the Couples Love Challenge. And if anybody wants to go and be a part of it, it's a free challenge. They can go to coupleslovechallenge.com and sign up for it there. But that eventually will lead into an actual couples program, where we it's going to be a 12-week program where that's exactly what we do, where
That's
we
great.
answer the questions, we get into the one-on-ones where we get to really dive deep with the community and just say, okay, let's get into this the nitty gritty and details of how we do this on a regular day-to-day basis, with whether A, somebody who can do it with us, or B, somebody who's reluctant. And how does that work? So it's a group coaching program that we're going to be doing, and that's going to be a 12-week program that will be actually after the Couples Love Challenge. But
Perfect. I will put the
yeah.
links in the show notes so people can find that. And that's probably is that the best way to find you as well?
Yeah. So they can find us at coupleslovechallenge.com. If they want to find more about the program is called the Connection Formula. So they can just head to connectionformula.online, and that will give them a little more information about that too.
Perfect. All right. Well, Juan de Dios, you had said, like, how much time do we have? I'm like, whatever. We've gone so far over, but it was a great conversation. Again,
I was
that's
going to
why
get coffee. I was going to go get coffee, come back, and we'll continue, right?
right. That's the beauty of having your own show. You can go as long as you want. So this was wonderful. And thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you again, Dr. Cam, for having me.
And thank you, parents, for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us and listening to another episode of Parenting Teens with Dr. Cam. If you want to learn even more about how to connect with your teen and calm the drama, be sure to join me on Tuesday for the Parenting Teens Power Hour. I have an incredible lineup of experts ready to share their best tips and secrets, and it's free. You can register at askdrcam.com/power hour. I'll put the links in the show notes along with the links for Juan de Dios. Also, if you enjoyed this episode and all the amazing nuggets that Juan de Dios shared with us, please take a quick moment to rate and review. This helps other parents like you find the show. Feel free to share it with a friend too, and have a peaceful, positive, calm day.